Hello and welcome to Transform Tuesday. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Products and Services here at Alpha Software, here in sunny Boston, Massachusetts. Well, nearby Boston, Massachusetts. Today's Transform Tuesday is going to focus on invoicing, but I'm also here to take questions as well. So if you do have questions, go ahead and type them into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. I'm also joined today by Sarah Mitchell, who's in charge of our documentation department, who can answer your questions as well. So again, type those questions in if you have any. Today's topic actually comes from a question that I was asked late last week by someone who is attempting to build an invoice using TransForm. And, they just wanted to build something simple, just some line items, maybe a quantity and a value and a total. And then they wanted TransForm to sum them all up at the bottom. So the question is, how do they do it? They went and took a look through the TPL user's guide, and there wasn't actually an example on invoices or even adding up these things. So I was like, oh, that's an oversight. So I decided that we would build that for today's session. So today we're going to build something that kind of looks like this. This is on my, flip over here. This is a screenshot from my phone. And here I've have a field for the product, a price, a quantity, the extension, which is of course the price times the quantity, and then a total. Now here the extension and the total are the same because I only have one line item, but if I add multiple line items, they will add up to the new total. So let me give you a demonstration of that working, and then I will show you how I built the form, and then I will show you the coding that's necessary to get it done. It's only 9 lines of code, but I think you're going to learn a thing or two if you are not used to building out things that refer to items in a data group. So let's start with the example. I'm going to go open my phone and start mirroring. And let's hook that up. Okay. And that may have appeared on a different screen. So let me move out of here. Ah, there we go. Great. So I'm going to go, and we're looking at my iPhone right now. I'm going to go and just upload the forms that I've got there. And I'm going to go add a blank form. And I'm going to hit refresh to make sure I have the latest form definitions. And I'm going to scroll down to today's example, which is invoice. So I'm going to tap on invoice. And here there's a place for a name. Let's say we're selling it to McCormick Brothers. And we'll set a date for the invoice. We'll say it's now a date time. And now let's get into it. So for the items, I'm going to tap add a new item. And here I just have a list of, some fake products here. But let's say we wanted to sell a modem. So we'll say that the modem costs $149. And we just need one of them. Okay. Now let's add another item. To that product, let's add a router separately from the modem. And let's say that was $200. And just one of those. And then to make it interesting, let's add some cables. So we can have multiple cables. Let's say some Cat5 cables. Let's say they go for $14 each. And I'm going to want 5 of those for whatever reason. All right, great. So now as you can see here on my phone, I'm going to use my mouse pointer here. I have the modem at $149, quantity 1, extension 149. Similar with the router at a price of $200, extension 200. And then 14 of these times 5, which is $70. And you'll see down here at the bottom, I have totaled up all of those line items to $419. And that's it. Not a lot to it. Seems pretty simple. So how do you actually go about doing it in TransForm? Well, I'm going to show you. But first, let me shut off screen mirroring. Okay, great. So I began by building the form, and here is this is just a screenshot. I'll show you the real TransForm form in a moment. The first 2 fields you saw, it was the name. I had entered McCormick Brothers and the date for the invoice. And then what I put in is I put in a heading, a section heading. I'm sorry, a heading right here, which just says a group with spacers so that you could see the word items there. And then I put in a data group. For those of you who are not familiar with data groups are a way of enclosing the fields in your form so that you can ask the same questions or have them enter the same fields multiple times. It's a group of data, if you will. And then within that, I put in a section start and a section end, and I did that for formatting purposes. I'm going to cover the formatting after I show you how we did the calculations. All right, so let's take a look at the code. Let me just go into Safari, and I'm going to go to TransForm. And so here is my form right here, and you'll see that my fields are called price, QTY, EXT, and total. So if I go into the code behind that form, you will see I have created, you'll see because they're in green here, I've created 2 events. So the first event is going to fire when I change the price, and the second event is going to fire if I change the quantity. So if I go back and change the price again, it'll also make adjustments. It doesn't really matter what order I do them in. That's why I put them on both of them. So the point is, of course, every time I change the price, I would like it to not only figure out what the extension is, but also figure out what the total is. And so here's the code to do that. And it's a little bit small, so for your convenience, I put it here on this PowerPoint slide, and we'll get to see it in a larger format. Okay, so this is how we start out. Extension is the name of my field for that I want to set. And the price is, and this means when I put it in this format, the current extension, the one I'm working on, and I'm going to set that equal to the price asterisk quantity. I'm going to set it the price times the quantity. Now, I think most of you can follow that pretty well. But I don't want it just to be in any format because, you know, sometimes things can get rounded weird, especially when you're using TPL, which is sort of JavaScript based. So what I use is I use a format function. And I've said the EXT field is equal to the formatted version of the EXT field using this particular format string, which means just give me a number and then put a decimal and give me 2 spaces at the end. Now, if you were in Europe and your divider wasn't the period to indicate decimal, but a comma, you could put a comma there instead. All right, so that's how I got the extension. But now that's a little bit trickier is we need to add up all of the extensions because maybe this isn't the first extension I've added. So we start out by setting the total field to 0 because it may have had something in there to begin with. And then we do a loop. In fact, let me indent this a little for readability. We're going to go from 0 to the length of the array minus 1. You're saying, why is that? Well, because our arrays are 0-based indexed arrays. So that's how we set up for loops when we want to go through all the items in a data group. And we simply say that the total is equal to the total plus items. That's the name of my data group. That's the index value. That's the one that's going to get incremented by that for and for loop. And then period .ext, that is the name of our field, the extension field. So as this goes through, it looks through every single data group. It pulls out the total. It adds it to, first we set the total to 0. Then we loop through all the data groups. And as we do it, we keep incrementing the total by whatever is in the extension field. I think most of you probably had that so far. The last thing we're going to do after that's done is we're again going to apply some formatting, but this time I've used a slightly different formatting string here than I've used previously. I placed the $sign in front of that. So you're probably asking me, how in the world did you know that that's the format string? You know, where do I go to look that up? Well, let me show you. Let's pop back over here into TransForm. And what I did is I went over here into this reference section while I was building the code. I tapped on reference. So let's see if I'll tap there and tap back. And up at the top, there are some hyperlinks that take you down to the different kind of functions for different types of variables and objects. So the one I knew that I was dealing with a number. That's what I wanted to format. So I just tapped number. And you'll see that there are some explanations of how you can do formatting with numbers. The one that I used here is the format number. You can also do rounding and things like that, but I liked this one because I could put in $signs and things like that. And so there's a whole little system to it, but you'll probably find that the one you need is already one of the examples here in the list. So you basically just steal the one that you want and use it in your own code. All right, back there. Once that's been formatted, the script ends and off we go. Now again, I set up that script on both the price field, but also on the quantity field, because it doesn't matter. Whichever one I change, I want to do that same action. And as you can see, that's all it took. Okay, so that I hope explains how you can reference items within a data group and perform summations. I typically use a loop. You refer to it by its index value. You can get the length of its index value and use this kind of syntax, 0 to the length of the thing minus 1 in order to go through the looping of it. And that's all there is. Okay, so the second thing I'd like to point out, because sometimes this gets confusing, and I almost forgot how to do it when I was coming up with today's example, was how do I make sure that these fields appear on all the same line together? Let me mirror my phone again so I can show you what I mean. Okay. So in fact, I'm going to turn it sideways because it makes it even more obvious that normally when you place fields in TransForm, it's just one above another, above another, above another. But that's not really a great format for an invoice. You want to have different columns here. And you'll see I gave a little bit more space for the products column because I know that that's a description that can run pretty long, and a little bit less space for prices, quantities, and extensions. I mean, this will hold us still a pretty big number. So in order to do that, let's pop back into TransForm and I'll show you how I set that up. Okay, stop mirroring. And here we are. So to do that, let me cancel out. I'm going to go back into the form commands section. What I did was I created a section around all of these items here. And in that, so to do that, in fact, I'm just going to do it again so that you can see how that's working. I'm going to delete that. And we'll delete that one. And I had some things turned on here, which I'm going to turn off just so I can show you the real base case. Whoops, I made a mistake. And two more. This one, click save, and this one. Don't have to worry about that. Yeah, I do have to worry about that one. Hang on. Click save. Okay. So the first thing I did, so you'll see now, this is how it would appear by default if you were just laying out these fields the way you might normally do. You have price above quantity above extension, which is not the way we want to have it displayed. So the first thing I did was I took all of the things that I wanted to have grouped together on one line and I highlighted them. Then I went up here to the plus button to add a form command and I scrolled down to section and I said, I'd like you to enclose this section. Okay. So all it's done here is add some indents and everything's still in the same line. So that's not quite what we want, but let me show you how we fix that. We go over here with the section start item highlighted over here into layout, and I'm going to tap on for the small and medium. By the way, this refers to screen sizes. So my phone, I think, counts as a small, a slightly bigger phone, like the plus size phones are a medium. Large and extra large, you could think of as tablets and iPad Pro or something like that. Right now, I'm just setting it up for the phone size because that's all I really care about. And so I say for the small size, I'd like this to be 1, 2, 3, 4 columns, but I'm actually going to make it 5 columns across. And that's because I would like one of my fields to take up 2 columns. That's the product field. That one was a bit longer. Okay, so now here's the key thing, and I make this mistake all the time. I click off to go do something else, but what you have to do is you have to click save, otherwise it'll forget it. You can tell you've done it properly because you'll see that this layout area here changes. Then I go over here and to each one of these, and I tell it I'd like to have a layout in which it is 1 column wide. But remember, we decided that the product should be 2 columns wide. So we're going to say a width of 2 for medium and a width of 2 for small. And I'm going to click save. And as you can see, that widened right out. Let's take a look at these other two. We may not have to do anything to them. I will click these buttons, but you'll see that they're already set to a width of 1, so we're good. And we're going to go to quantity, and we're going to do the same thing. Make sure that the width is set to 1. Save that. And extension width is set to 1 for each of those as well. Okay, great. Now, there's a cool little feature here. Like if, remember I said I wanted to have this work on my phone, which isn't a big phone, but I also wanted to work on bigger phones. But how can I tell what size it is? You can actually simulate that here by choosing small, medium, large, and extra large right here from this hamburger menu, which is at the bottom. So I've went to large. I think I didn't set any special rules on large. Oh, maybe I did. Extra large. Well, seems to work anyway. So that is all set up. Actually, let me see. Yeah, no, that's good. All right. So when those are in place, that's how you do it. That's how you get all the items to line up next to each other like that. Then, of course, you need to save the commands, click Save to Upload. And then when you're on your phone, anytime you make a change, just a quick reminder, you need to download, refresh the form definitions before you can see that change on your phone. So let me make sure we covered everything I wanted to talk about today. So I showed you how to refer to items in a group and how to perform a summary of that items using the summary addition, or perform a sum on those items using this TPL code. And we did a quick refresher on how to set out layouts and responsive design so that you can have multiple fields on each row. So that's it for me today. Rather short session. Let's take a look, see if we have any questions. How to avoid the delay? Okay, this is a good question I've gotten before. Oh, okay. Actually, someone did point out correctly that I used 7 lines of code when I said it took 9. That's true. I apologize. I'll add 2 more lines of code, I promise, for next time. Thanks very much for that comment. Okay, here's a question. Can you show how to avoid the delay in GPS from a previous video where you combined time and location in one button? The time works, but the location has a 3 to 5 second delay before it works. I still don't yet have an answer on that. So thank you for reminding me to get to the bottom of that, but I will do so. So let me just make a note of that. Unless Sarah, you have some insights. Do you know anything about that? I believe there's a TPL function that lets you automatically collect the time, the location and stuff and store it, but there might be a delay. And I think what the deal was is there was a delay. So if you moved off the field too quickly, it didn't get filled in. That might have been the issue. Okay, cool.
I don't remember. I know there's like the settings for changing how quickly how often it pulls between location captures. So but yeah, we'll have to get to the bottom of this.
We'll take a look at that. If you wouldn't mind sending a copy of a simple form which has got that problem to tfservice at alphasoftware.com, I'd be happy to take a look at it and find out. So the next question, that's an obvious one, is, hey, how can you email that invoice now that it's done? You can. I will show you how to do that. Well, maybe next week. We can format it. Actually, we were talking about that just before today's session, about how do we build out like a really nice Word template like this one and have it merge the data that we got from TransForm and have that appear in an email. And we can do it, and stay tuned and we'll show you next time. Oh, yeah, that's another thing that you pointed out, the indentation field in styling. Thank you very much for pointing that out. When I'm back in here in Safari and I am, when I'm back here in Transform Central and I am taking a look at my section, remember how when we first did it, all these items were indented? Actually, it looks like they still are indented. If I click on layout here for my section start, single click will do it. By default, it actually does have it set to indented. I don't want that. That's kind of a waste of space. So yeah, thanks for pointing that out. I'm going to set that to no and to no. Then I'm going to click save. And as you can see, that moves over to the left. Yeah, very good call. Thanks very much. Well, that's it for today. If anyone has further questions, like us to solve some issue, please send an email to tfservice@alphasoftware.com. It's monitored by a team of people, including me and Sarah. Thanks everyone who showed up today. Thank you very much, Sarah, for being here to field questions. And we hope to see you next Tuesday, the next Transform Tuesday. Take care and be well. Bye-bye.